Okay, Walter, this is just for you. Can you hear this? Test this one more time. Okay, Walter, how about this? You got this? I'm at the podium now. Can you hear the podium?
Yeah, I don't think we do. I think Bernie's I think yeah, it's you gotta get that body memory thing down.
Oh, great. New people would show up. Great.
Yes, it is.
I would consider it eventually.
You want to sing it? That's the way it works.
There are plenty of words in that one word doesn't hang in.
There are more words in the book.
Yes. If you
Thanks for bringing all your own time. Not yet.
Whoever you are.
Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Toledo. I am Judy Lee Troutman, today's service associate. The service will be led today by our senior minister, Dr. T.K. Barger. Today we're observing both Juneteenth and Father's Day. In honor of Juneteenth, I think we might be mindful of the fact that there are still people who would like us not to teach about our dark history, as if we don't talk about it, it didn't happen. And happy Father's Day to all the fathers and father figures out there, all those who've nurtured children. As we just sang, all are welcome here. We are a diverse congregation bound not by a set creed of beliefs, but by a covenant to love, to support each other as we seek to find our own spiritual truths and to serve others. If you are visiting today, you will find several cards in the pew rack in front of you. If you would like to connect with us and find out more about our activities, please fill out the yellow card so that you may receive our weekly email, UUFYI. You will also see a rainbow card with our 7 principles and our 6 sources that our UU congregations affirm and promote in that search for truth and meaning. Feel free to take home any of the information cards in the rack. After the service, you are invited to coffee hour just down the hall and to the left. And now for some morning announcements. We thank Tom Sheehan for providing music for today's service as we're between music directors. While we continue the search for a new church musician, if you're musically inclined, you're invited, like Tom was, to play an anthem and hymn on Sundays or prepare the complete music for the service. Contact Reverend Tim if you'd like to perform and accompany on a Sunday this summer. Slots are still open.
We want to let you know about adjustments in our COVID-19 procedures. We're stopping the sign-in process for possible contact tracing, as it appears that in large part because of vaccinations, though it seems more people are being infected, even Dr. Fauci. In general, we seem to be handling the exposure better, and with the infections more common, the contacts aren't easily traced. While we still have a COVID-19 crisis and the pandemic is not over, with developments and changes in confronting the disease, including the anticipated federal approval of vaccines for our youngest people, our COVID task force has completed its work, and the Board of Trustees will be the lead policymakers again. And if we need to consult with our people who are more versed in COVID, we certainly will. We urge you, if you haven't been vaccinated and boosted, please get the shots. They do make a difference. And while mask wearing is optional, it is added protection, and we encourage it.
You're invited to attend the Multi-Faith Council of Northwest Ohio's free intergenerational multi-faith summer series, Compassion Across the Faiths, which began 2 weeks ago, continues this coming Thursday, June 23rd, from 6 to 8 p.m. at Sylvania United Church of Christ, and concludes June 30th at Temple Shomer Emunim. You're welcome to attend any or all of the remaining programs. Dinner is provided, and there are storytelling and age cohort faith discussions. Go to multifaithcouncil.org to register. I'd like to also announce the Interfaith Blood Drive. It's the first and longest standing interfaith blood drive in the country, and we're honored to have it here in Toledo with the leadership of Devorah Shulamit, who has just tirelessly supported this drive. This year, partly because of COVID, it will be one day only. It will be at Grace Lutheran Church, Saturday, June 25th from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And we'd like to make that one day really count with lots of volunteers. If you can donate blood, there are still slots open, but you must register. There will be no walk-ins this year. So you can go to redcrossblood.org and find a drive and find the one on Saturday, June 25th at Grace Lutheran Church. and sign up for one of the slots. There are other ways you can help. If you'd like to donate fruit, vegetables, baked goods, or even monetary contributions, you can contact Devorah Shulamit, and her contact information is in the UUFYI. One other multi-faith announcement, the Toledo, first of all, the LFH blanket making. Our blanket making group in support of Leading Families Home is meeting now on the fourth Wednesday of each month at 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And usually the group goes to lunch afterwards. No special skills are needed, and if you have sharp scissors, please bring them along. They made 6 blankets at their last meeting, and LFH really appreciated that. So join them for creative fun and fellowship, and contact Mary Souther at MB Souther at BexNet if you have questions, and that's in your order of service. One other multi-faith announcement, the Toledo Unitarians multi-faith meditations from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesdays, held in alliance with Flowing Water Saga, have been Zoom only for most of the pandemic. But beginning July 5th, they'll be both in person in the Carl Sagan room, which is down the hall, our church's meditation place, and it will also continue on Zoom. So you're invited to sit with other meditators in the room or in cyberspace. I believe that's all of the morning announcements. So now we'll have opening words, today by Penny Hackett-Evans. Each of us brings a separate truth here. We bring the truth of our own life, our own story. We don't come as empty vessels, but as full people, each with our own story and our own truth. We seek to add to our truths and add to our stories. This room is rich with truth, rich with experience. All manner of people are here, needy, joyful, frightened, anxious, bored. We all bring our truth with us. May we all recognize the truth and the story in other lives than our own. May we hear and honor the truths that we all bring as we gather together. Together we have truths. Together we have a story. Together we are a community.
As Judy lights the chalice, I bring these words by Ralph Waldo Emerson. We have a great deal more kindness than is ever spoken. The whole human family is bathed with an element of love like a fine ether. How many persons we meet in houses whom we scarcely speak to, whom yet we honor and who honor us. How many we see in the street or sit with in church, whom though silently, we warmly rejoice to be with. Read the language of these wandering eye-beams. The heart knoweth. And please recite with me the covenant of this congregation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening hymn will be number 162, Gonna Lay Down My Sword and Shield. We'll sing all the verses. And today we have some volunteers from the congregation who will be in front leading us all in singing. So we appreciate our multiple song leaders today, and everybody please join in.
was beautiful. Good morning. On the first day of school, Velvet's classmates brought their teacher cinnamon tea, lace handkerchiefs, and heart-shaped boxes of potpourri. Velvet handed her teacher an egg carton filled with 7 rocks and her favorite red shoelaces, and half a sparrow's egg. Velvet was odd. At lunchtime, Velvet not only carried a used brown paper bag, but inside of it were things like carrots and a butter sandwich, and she ate them. At recess, a few of the girls noticed that Velvet was not wearing a nice new dress, even though it was the beginning of the school year. Where did she come from? They wondered aloud. All of this strangeness did not stop after the first day of school. In fact, it got worse. Velvet brought a milkweed pod for show and tell. Luckily, 3 of the other girls brought a talking doll, a wedding doll, and a crying doll, and saved the day. Velvet's nose was freckled, and she had a pack of only 8 crayons, and her sweater once belonged to her older sister. Nothing was right about Odd Velvet. Although everyone was polite to her, no one was silly enough to pick Velvet for partner play or to walk home with her after school. No one wanted to be different the way Velvet was different. On the day of the school field trip, the children were laughing and calling each other by their nicknames. Someone called out, "What's your nickname, Velvet?" It got quiet as Velvet looked around. "I don't have one," she said, "but my father told me that on the day I was born, the sun was just rising over the mountains, and outside it looked as though the world had been covered with a blanket of smooth, soft, lavender velvet." A few of the kids let out a giggle, but mostly the bus fell quiet. For a moment, everyone was thinking of how beautiful that morning must have been, the day Velvet was born. The following week, a school drawing contest was announced. There was no question who the winner would be. Sarah Garvey had the best markers, the biggest paint set, and more colored pencils than anyone else in the class. When the day arrived to announce the winner, the children let Sarah sit right up front. No one was more surprised when the teacher called out Velvet's name. Velvet had drawn an apple. "It's just a piece of fruit," Sarah protested. Everyone stared at the picture. "It looks so real, I would like to eat it," someone said. "It seems like you could pick it up," another child added. Sure enough, with just her 8 crayons, Velvet had drawn the most beautiful apple the children had ever seen. Little by little, the things that Velvet said and the things that Velvet did began to make sense. The teacher had Velvet speak for 2 whole days about her rock collection. She even had ashes from a real volcano. Still, on the day that she handed out invitations to her birthday party, the whispering began. "I bet her house is old and dark," Sarah said. The thought of going to Velvet's house made everyone feel a little uneasy. Velvet lived in a tiny house at the end of a long road. There was no jungle gym or tetherball, just a swing hanging from a big old tree. At the door, Velvet's mom and dad politely asked the children in. There were no birthday magicians or wizards, not even a clown. But they got to turn Velvet's room into a castle. The royal subjects painted their faces and put glitter in their hair. They jumped high off the bed into a blue blanket moat. Velvet's sister made each of them a golden crown with colored jewels. They took turns wearing Velvet's royal cloak, which used to be a bedspread. They played cards and shot marbles. Velvet even showed them how to draw beautiful apples. On the last day of school, Velvet's classmates brought their teacher handfuls of flowers, cards that they had made, and an impressive collection of nice-looking rocks. Velvet was different. Maybe she wasn't so odd after all.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to give you a little background about the chant that we'll be doing today for our centering music. In the Alcott room, where we have children's RE classes, you will see this poster. It's also on the screen, I see. And I really don't know where these words come from, but it's what's used to help Unitarian children understand their religious identity. So we are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. And the children often do it with, we are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands that are ready to serve. That's part one of my introduction. Part two. Pre-pandemic, maybe a year before, I don't know, Melissa had a spiritual adventures class in which she was exploring different ways we could have music in our congregation. And I hope I get this right, but we were talking about developing a chant. And I think I suggested doing a chant from this. So the origin of this chant that we'll be doing comes from this wonderful saying for the children, and then Melissa's workshop. So I think we can probably dispense with the movements, but you're welcome to do them if you like. I've asked Krista in the back, she's got a little chime, and I've asked her to chime the chime after 2 minutes. Now, I experimented with this. It's going to seem long, but trust Krista will remember. She'll time it. So I'll start it, but then I'm not going to lead it. It's just going to do its own thing, and the words are on the screen there. So it goes, minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve. Minds that think, hearts that love, hands that are ready to serve.
With thinking minds, loving hearts, and serving hands, let's join in a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. There are 4 big markers for this week. Juneteenth and Father's Day are today. The summer solstice is only 2 days from now. And the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly will take place Wednesday through next Sunday in Portland, Oregon. It's also, remember, Pride Month too. We could have planned a Sunday service on any of those or an oleo of all of them. But we're in the midst of an all summer look at our Unitarian Universalist principles and sources. If you want to focus on any of these, please use this time of meditation for your contemplation. For our words of meditation today, I bring Keep Your Dreams Alive by Hope Johnson. Listen. Light the way. Lend a hand. Make decisions. Commit. Take risks. Fail forward. Build community. Nurture meaningful relationships. Be real. Give thanks. Invest in someone or something that you believe in. Live. Love. Dream. Dream big. Be transformed. Change the world. Lead. And keep your dreams alive. We'll observe 1 minute of silence.
I'm now going to lead you in 2 responsive readings, and you have in your order of service the responses, which are the same for all of the first parts of each of the responsive readings, and then it changes for the very last one. And you'll be cued by the slides, but I'll also kind of raise my hand when I'm doing the last one so that you know. If recognizing the interdependence of all life, we strive to build community, the strength we gather will be our salvation. If you are black and I am white, If you are female and I am male, if you are older and I am younger, if you are progressive and I am conservative, if you are straight and I am gay, if you are Christian and I am Jewish, if we join spirits as brothers and sisters, the pain of our aloneness will be lessened, and that does matter. In the Spirit, we build community and move toward restoration. And now I have a little preface to the second responsive reading. In the fall of 2006, the Unitarian Universalist Association's Journey Toward Wholeness Transformation Committee was meeting and learned that Reverend Marjorie Bowen Sweetley was dying from cancer. This is an account by then committee member Michael Salwasser. Marjorie's connection to the committee is manifold: colleague, role model, foremother, inspiration, and beloved friend. To honor her contribution, the Journey Toward Wholeness, we read her litany of restoration. As we reflect on her words, we realize that there were people who were not included. We sought new language that would widen the circle, that could make us whole. In her final days, Marjorie herself was engaged in this search, but there was precious remaining time, and she was gone. Holding fast to the spirit of Marjorie's words and mindful of all she had done to bring us to where we are on the journey, I wrote a new litany in her honor, dedicated to the memory of the Reverend Marjorie Bowen Sweetley. I share with you a litany of diversity. If the colors of our skin or the lands of our ancestors are different, if the stages in our lives are different, if our means of achieving the common good are different, if who we love and how we love are different, if the spiritual paths we follow are different, if our abilities to think and do are different, if our resources are different, if we join spirits and hearts, our differences will not divide us, but deeply bind us together.
We covenant to affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. I'll call this a building principle. It's different from our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, because this emphasizes acceptance, kind of what we do about recognizing what is inherent. And it's different from justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, our second principle, in a focus on spiritual growth in our congregations, that it comes into our church closer to us than in general society. It builds on those. There's not a rank order of principles in the concept of one principle building on the next. I referred to the first two as we've already had them in this series of Sunday services, not that they lead up to the third principle. But remember that these Unitarian Universalist principles are what we see as a way to help guide us through life, including relating to one another and even situating the self. Though again, the principles are congregational in their adoption,
not individual in terms of a creed. But we can certainly use them for our own direction, and as a group, each in a way builds on all the others. Let's look at the third principle. Acceptance is a deliberate term, going further than a time when our general word was tolerance, with an undertone in the past that we can tolerate but don't have to accept. It's a bit more work, practically and spiritually, to accept something and then deal with why it's not comfortable. But that's a better way to build beloved community, isn't it? Kind of by being with others where they are, rather than imposing your ways on them. And encouragement to spiritual growth. Another building aspect will get us to the fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. And again, the principles aren't prioritized, but we establish context that truth and meaning are parts of spiritual growth. And Unitarian Universalism is religious, not just a philosophy. Conscience, world community, and interdependence from the fifth, sixth, and seventh principles easily fit into this aspect of building principles as we look at the third principle too. Plus, the language of this third principle is spiritual growth in our congregations. So we can't and shouldn't accept or even tolerate the same religious approach at every Sunday service or in one congregation. For example, I'm a humanist in my theology, but I bring services on Christianity, paganism, Islam, Judaism, and other world religions, sometimes consciously from my humanist perspective, other times not personalizing the topic to me, but to greater Unitarian Universalism, or inviting speakers or using texts to have another's approach. My sermons aren't just theologically oriented either. In Unitarian Universalist religious talks, we include news, issues, really the goal of everything that brings one to another and that can contribute to spiritual growth. And we really encourage your being curious and bringing your curiosity into the congregation. That all leads to acceptance as a part of spiritual growth. If not acceptance of the concept or belief, then acceptance that there are people who believe differently than we do. And we can accept them in our lives without a need to have them believe what we do. Given as well that we might have to do a bit of extra effort when we're working to accept others who think it's right to force their beliefs on us. And as if it needs to be said, we can learn from one another, getting back to that acceptance term and satisfying some curiosity. Acceptance of one another and encouragement of spiritual growth in our congregations seems pretty simple when we just read it, doesn't it? Almost a throwaway statement that that's what we all want to do in church universally, isn't it? Until we start to wonder what acceptance and encouragement actually mean and how we might go about being active about it. Can I say that then this gets to why we have our Unitarian Universalist congregation and how we do church? We're not an isolating faith. We don't imagine we live in a different world when we're together in the sanctuary, and we don't ignore reality. Our sanctuary is part of this earth, not a gateway to a celestial realm. We may feel isolated in being liberal religious people with so many folks of other dissimilar faiths in our area, but we don't encourage isolation. Our church, more than many, is not one of closed doors. Our welcoming ways are not necessarily to convert others to our ways, but to build community, to learn from others, and to be open to change in ourselves as we adjust to the others in our lives and congregation, and as they adjust to us, and we grow from that realization too. And yes, it's true, we might be a bit different and even isolating at the times we try to live our ideals in church and in the larger world. But I hope we're trying to live as better selves and ease the isolation as we grow in comfort with our principles. Being principled as individuals and as an organization is part of what makes us religious. Religious in and of this world and not focused on one to come. This third principle is very much one for here, where we are, with one another, and in our congregations, doing our part, and then some, I hope, to make this a better world. I called this a building principle. That was in it building on the other principles, but look at the other aspect. It's important inside and outside of our congregation's building, isn't it? Spiritual growth in our congregations says that we're together in a group, in our buildings. Acceptance of one another puts us into community, that it's not just us, but together with people outside of our congregations. And we build those two places into Unitarian Universalism, one in many. That simple statement of the principle, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, is multidimensional. That makes it important enough to be a guiding principle. It's important, not just nice, churchy words. Live this principle and live all of them. So be it.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you for this series that's reminding us of some of our basic principles. And now it's time for our offering. Your pledges and offerings are a way that you can support this self-sustaining church, its many programs, and its mission in the broader community. You may give online by going to our website, utoledo.org, click on Give, and then Online Giving. You may instead mail a check to First Unitarian Church, 3205 Glendale Avenue, Toledo, Ohio, 43614. And you may drop your donations or even a little extra in the basket on the welcome table in the entranceway. Your giving helps us.
And now coming soon, next week at the 9:45 a.m. Spiritual Adventures Forum, we've got details to come. And what we're hoping to do is to show excerpts from this year's General Assembly that will be underway at that time. We won't have the service because it is Sunday afternoon our time, but we might have some excerpts of other proceedings if we can get the technology set up, because it's been 2.25 years since we have been able to stream in Fellowship Hall. So we got to try it out and get it ready. So we hope that that's what we'll be doing. Also, I want to point out that there will be Spiritual Adventures Forum in July. The schedule just hasn't been firmed up yet. We know that the 9:45 to 10:45 hour on Sundays is important to many of you, and we're developing and planning what is to come. And next week at our 11 a.m. Sunday service, search for what is true on the fourth Unitarian Universalist principle.
And I'd like to remind you that after the service, there's coffee hour and social time as you're comfortable down the hall and to the left. Now for closing words, We Need One Another by George E. Odell. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
As we send the flame of our chalice into the community, let it be an invitation to bring one another together and for us all to grow in spirit with thinking minds, loving hearts, and serving hands. For our postlude, our vocal volunteers will lead us in the first verse of a hymn appropriate for Juneteenth, number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing.